Good morning, all. Welcome back to my class. Today, we are going to learn the rest of the story, The Selfish Giant. Before that, I give you a brief summary to recall your memory. The giant's garden was very beautiful. Children loved to play in it. But the giant was selfish, so he decided not to allow anybody to play in his garden. He put up a notice board that trespassers will be prosecuted. The spring came all over the country. But in Giant's garden, the winter, the snow, the frost, the north wind, and the hail were the visitors. One morning he heard some lovely music of a linnet. He jumped out of bed and looked out. I am going to read the second part, so look at the textbook. Turn your textbook to page number 20. He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child. And the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. Climb up, little boy, said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the boy was too tiny, and the giant's heart melted as he looked out. How selfish I have been, he said. Now I know why the spring could not come here. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree. And then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground for ever and ever. He was really very sorry for what he had done. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giant coming. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hands and put him up into the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossom, and the birds came and sang on it. And the little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running back, and with them came the spring. It is your garden now, little children, said the giant, and he took a great axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. But where is your little companion? He said. The boy I put into the tree? The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. We don't know, answered the children. He has gone away. You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow, said the giant. But the children said that they did not know where he lived and had never seen him before, and the giant felt very sad. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for his little friend and often spoke of him. How I would like to see him, he used to say. Years went by, and the giant grew very old and feeble. He could not play about any more. So he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep, and that the flowers were resting. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvelous sight. In the furthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossoms. Its branches were golden and silver fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden. He hastened across the grass and came near to the child. And when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath dared to wound thee?" For on the palms of the child's hand were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of the 2 nails were on the little feet. "Who hath dared to wound thee?" cried the giant. "Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him." Slay means to kill someone in a violent way. "Nay," answered the child, "but these are the wounds of love." "Who art thou?" said the giant, and a strange awe fell on him. And he knelt before the little child. And the child smiled on the giant and said to him, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise." And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. I am going to explain, so listen carefully. The giant saw the most lovely sight. The children had entered his garden through a little hole. They were sitting in the branches of the trees. The trees were very glad to have them. They had blossomed. The birds were flying about. They were chirping also. The flowers were also looking up. It was a lovely sight. But in one corner there was still winter. In that corner a small boy was standing. He could not reach the branches of the tree. He was crying and wandering about. The north wind blew and roared. The tree asked the boy to climb. It bent its branches down, but the boy could not climb. The giant's heart melted as he looked out. He said that he was really selfish. He also said that now he understood why the spring didn't come. He would put that little boy on the top of the tree. He would also pull down the wall. His garden shall be the children's playground forever. He was so sorry for what he had done. When the children saw the giant, they ran away. The garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run. He was weeping. He didn't see the giant coming. The giant put the boy up into the tree. The tree blossomed at once. The little boy kissed the giant. The other children saw that the giant was not wicked. They came running back. The spring also came with them. The giant told the children that it was their garden. He pulled down the wall. People saw the giant playing with the children during noon. Every afternoon the children came and played with the giant. But the giant wanted to see the little boy. The little boy did not come. Years went over. The giant grew very weak. He watched the children were playing in the garden. He used to say that children were the most beautiful flowers in the garden. One winter morning, the giant suddenly rubbed his eyes. He saw a very beautiful scene. In one corner, there stood a lovely tree with white blossoms. Its branches were golden. The little boy stood under it. The giant saw that the little boy was wounded. He had the prints of 2 nails on the hands and feet. The giant was very angry. He said that he would slay the man who had wounded him. But the boy told the giant that those were the wounds of love. The giant at once asked the boy who he was. A strange fear fell on the giant. The boy smiled. He told the giant to come with him to his garden. His garden was paradise. The children found the giant dead under the tree. He was covered with white blossoms. That's all for the day. Thank you.